Hi y'all, welcome back to my shop. I'm going to demonstrate how I turn this threaded box with this contrasting wood insert and this accent ring to hold toothpicks. But before we get started, I want to give a big shout out to Sam Angelo, the Wyoming woodturner. When I got interested in hand thread chasing several years ago, his videos and advice were very helpful to me. So if you're interested in thread chasing, be sure to check out Sam's channel. Let's get started. So we're starting with three pieces of wood, actually two in this blank that I rough turned August 2014 of Chechen, which is an exotic wood from I think Central America. We'll pull that off. And if you want to see how I rough turn this, you can watch an earlier video that I made from a link shown here. Second block, I'm going to make an insert for the top out of this spalted piece of wood, and we're just going to go ahead and cut this thing round, roughly round on a bandsaw, and then we're going to mount it on a glue block with some double stick tape. So let's get started with that. So I left this scrap in here from a previous project, made sure it's flat, put on a little piece of double stick tape. Okay, now that I've got this, I let this set up. Actually I set it up overnight because I finished late last night, but 10 minutes gives it optimum strength. And I'm measuring my box, and I figure my inlay is going to be about that big, so that's what I'm going to use to set the measurement, which is pretty close to getting this thing round. I think first thing I want to do is just thin it down some, get it about maybe 1/8 of an inch or so. And I'm using this 3/8 inch bowl gouge, swept back bowl gouge, and I'm just gonna thin it down. Look at that. Okay. Looks like I got a little torn grain, but I'm hoping it's not punky and that it'll sand out. Alright, so now let's go ahead and take it round. Close. Take it down a little bit more, and I'm going to slope this just slightly from front to back, kind of concave it just a little bit, so when I do the inlet hole, it will slide in and get tighter as it goes a little deeper. Just slightly. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and sand this off the lathe, and it'll be ready for use. Now the challenge is, of course, getting this up. It looks like I'm using this small skew, and just slowly get under it. Getting a little bit of a lift up there. Uh-oh. Wood was too punky. Wasn't strong as I wanted it to be, so I have to go back to find another piece of wood to do that inlay. Okay, the last piece tore loose, so I cut another piece at the same time. I'm going to use it, maybe use a wider knife pulling it off, but I like the grain, so I'm going to give it one more try with that wood. First thing I'm going to do is take this rectangle and cut it down, and I'm not going to leave this support on there as long. And I've given it about 5 minutes, and I'm going to leave it there a little bit longer while I shape it round. Still got some nice color, nice figure. I think that'll work out this time. I didn't leave it as long, and I'm going to go ahead and use a pocket knife with a wider edge, and I'm going to keep in pay attention to grain orientation, which is running perpendicular, and so I'm going to catch behind it here with a little more grain support. Last time I used the side grain and it cracked, so let's just ease this in. And just slowly pry it up. See it moving. I'm going to take my time. Just kind of rock it back. Continuous pressure is the trick to lifting up from this tape. There we go. Just continuous pressure. Okay, so I had a little bit of luck with that. I think I'll be happy with that as an insert. Okay, now I'm modeling this box roughly after this little box here that I made, frankly, years ago when I was learning to do threading. And then I decided, oh, I need nice threads, let me go ahead and follow through on a box. And then what am I going to use it for? Well, it turns out it handles toothpicks fairly well, but form follows function. So I need to make this one a little bit lower so you got a little more toothpick sticking out. And I'm going to have to certainly deepen the opening here to make that fit. So let's go ahead and get started. And I've already got that. I know about how wide that I need to open that up. Just a hair more, but first let's do some more hollowing. Because this is fairly shallow, I'm going to go ahead and just hollow with the 3/8 inch spindle gouge. Let me go ahead and get this tailstock out of the way. We're going to come right in on center, and I can see, and I'm going to use the full length of the top of this box, so I'll be going down to about there. Alright, I'm going to hollow from the center to the edge and do kind of a pivot cut with the thing pointing close to where 9:30 or 10 o'clock. Now to measure, to make sure this parallel, one technique I use is a little 6-inch ruler, and I just hold it with my finger, and I can see that it's canted in just a little bit, so I need to come back and pick up the cut and put a little more pressure toward the back as I come down. Actually, I want to see the... Actually, I've got a little bit more width to go. This is very important to get these walls parallel, and this trick seems to work because I can eyeball it and that works good. Okay, now I need to come back behind here just a little bit and turn a recess. So I have a recess tool I made out of some 8mm high-speed steel stock. And I'm just going to lay this flat and just come slightly behind here to make it a little easier to thread, and that'll be clear later. And I've got a nice recess. And now I want to just smooth the bottom. This is very hard wood, so a round nose scraper will do the job very well. Just going to get the bottom. And just lift the handle just a little bit, so I got a bit of a negative rake. Light touch, very light touch. Just swing this thing around. Spindle gouge and just pull it just a little bit. I want the outside to be slightly, the inside to be slightly recessed, so when the top and the bottom come together, they'll meet on the outside. And then I need to go ahead and take my pyramid tool or point tool and just round that edge off there just a bit. So let me clean up the inside, a little bit of sandpaper, and then I'll give you a quick threading demonstration. Okay, now I'm going to show you why I had that recess. The recess is so when I bring this hand thread chaser to the back, I'm not going to hit a wall or bump. It'll just go off into free space. Now I'm using what is traditionally called a hand rest, and I'm using 16 thread per inch. I've got a 20 thread per inch and a 10 thread per inch, but I find for hardwoods where it'll hold an edge, 16 is a nice middle of the road and is a good place to start. It makes a nice thread for a box this size. And I'm turning the speed, it's somewhere around 320. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to strike the thread. I'm going to get my hand here. And this hand rest, or arm rest, just gives me a little more leverage and a little more control. And that rounded edge there, actually, let's back this off just a little bit here. Give myself a little more room. Actually, I'm going to get a smaller tool rest and reposition. And with this tool rest, I can kind of control the up and down a little bit. Now, I have not done any hand thread chasing for a while, and it's one of those arts. It's kind of like riding a bicycle, except it does take a little bit of practice to get back up on the bike. So we're going to see what happens here. But first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to strike a thread across this rounded face, guessing at about how fast to go. Then once I get going, I can and I have tracks down, then I can continue to lay that track down. So let's see what happens here. And I slowly bring this around as I lay these tracks down, and every time I do this stroke, it falls into that thread, and then I just make it deeper and further back. Okay, I see what appears to be nicely formed threads. Now I want to take my ruler and double check to see if the walls appear to be fairly parallel rather, and that looks good. So I've got it deep enough. I've gone ahead and sanded, and I polished the inside with some of this U-Butte Triple E because I didn't want to have to finish this with the threads for risk of damaging or getting an abrasive in here, sandpaper or whatever. So I finished that before I thread chased. So now this is ready to go. first, because I think we're going to go ahead and work this inlay. Because of the size of this box, and it'll fit within these chucks, I'm going to go ahead and use the secure it with a chuck. I haven't fastened it down too tight, fairly loosely. And this is in, as opposed to doing the bottom, threading this on, and putting a lot of stress on it where I'm finishing the bottom. So I think we're going to do most of the shaping here, and then we'll save that jam chucking on the bottom for the final stages. But the first thing I'm going to do is mark about how wide this insert ring is going to go. So just kind of guessing. I think I got it right. Touching it on this side, leaving room on this side so it doesn't hit, and at a fairly slow speed. Now I've got that marked, and now I'm simply going to take a spindle gouge and cut to that recess just a little bit, and then I'll finish with a box scraper or a square end scraper. So let's come in here. Let's get the speed up a little bit. Okay, now we're going to use that box scraper again to get a nice flat. And cut on center with the handle lifted up just a little bit. And I want to make sure that that center is a little bit deeper than the outside. I don't want this thing to bounce around, that insert to bounce around. I want it fairly flat across the bottom, but maybe a slight recess in the middle. So now we're going to come right down with that square cut. Alright, let's see how we're doing. Oh wow, got it just about right. Almost made it too big, so I don't want to do anything more than that except get it flat. And I need to again use that, I think in this case I'm going to use, this will fit in there, I'm going to use the end of this 6-inch ruler to get it, judge how flat it is. And I can see here, I don't know if y'all can pick that up there, it's well in the center, but it's a little bit high here, about here and here, so I've got to take that down just a little bit. Okay. I think that'll probably do it. So now we're going to go ahead and use some glue, and I think I'm going to use wood glue as opposed to CA, and we're going to line up the grain where the grain in this lines up with the grain of that. So I'm going to put it in a little glue and pop that in there. Okay, I picked up this little trick somewhere. You know, these glue tops always seem to stick, but if you use a 5/8 inch wrench, apparently it will leverage underneath here. At least that's what I understood. That's an old bottle of glue. I'll tell you what, we'll not screw with that. We'll just take the top off, dip in the brush. Just coat it. A little bit on that insert. Spread it in there nice. Yeah, I think touch the edges. When we finish, we'll get that glue off easily, I think, like this. Alright, now I'm looking for the grain orientation, and it appears to be, there's the two flats, so we're going, there's the grain. We'll pop that in there. And then we just twist it a little bit. This is tight bond, so it'll stick real quick. Okay. Okay, while it's drying, I brought up this soft touch in my Nova Live system to kind of give it a little additional support while I go ahead and just get rid of some of this extra wood here from the tenon. Again, we'll refine this when we get it put on the bottom, but I want to just get some of the bulk wood removal here. And I think that'll do for the time being. Now, this is just prior to that surface, so I think just when it dries a little bit more, I'll just, I think, round over this just a little bit and sand it and blend it in, and I think we're going to be in good shape, ready to move on to the bottom. Okay, I've only let it dry maybe 10 minutes, but because of that original tight bond and I frictioned it in a little bit, I think it's going to hold well enough for us to blend these two surfaces together. So let's go ahead and do that. Light, very light touches. I'm just going to round this off very slightly down here. And blend these two together. And I think that's blended together fairly well. All it's going to need is a little bit of off-lathe sanding.